You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. No, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and he is Daylan Flowers, the Daylan Show on Twitter. Also, he has his own podcast as well, but he comes by every week to talk a little bit about Ole Miss sports as he is a student at the University of Mississippi. Interesting stuff. We're going to talk about the roster right now is about 99% of what it's going to be going into this football season. We're going to talk about Chris Hardy committing. We'll take a short break, and then after that, we'll talk about the top 5 greatest wins in Ole Miss football history. Anyway, Daylan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, man. Back home, so my background's a little different for right now, but I can't complain right now. Everything's going good.
Yeah, I hope you're getting a little bit of relaxing in at the moment.
I am. I'm able to nap and sleep without academic stress on my shoulders right now, man.
Yeah, I remember those days well. There was a time when I could sleep to 2 o'clock in the afternoon if I needed to. Now it doesn't matter when I go to sleep. I am waking up at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Like I literally can go to bed at like midnight or 1, and I'll still wake up at like 7:38. It's just natural for me to wake up, but I'm still enjoying a little bit of relaxations that I'm getting for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and speaking of relaxing, Ole Miss football can kind of relax as well because their roster is probably about 99% of the time. There's probably going to be a straggler or two that comes in over the next couple of weeks, but the roster is pretty close to set to what they're going to be for this 2024 playoff run.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. I think we've kind of just picked the brains of different parts of our football team over the last few months. And like you said, I think we're kind of set, and I'm excited, man. One thing I want to say, I've had a lot of people questioning, like, why are we getting so many running backs and things of that nature? Well, for different schemes, different reasons of that nature. But as well, like right there, Rashad Amos, a lot of these guys can be very good weapons on special teams. And I think that's something that I wouldn't say has plagued us over the last few years, but something that could definitely be better in terms of just giving us a better position on the field when our offense gets on the field. And so a lot of these running backs can be put in those special teams positions, and I think we can rock really well with them as well. And it's just a fun time right now. I know we also picked up the commitment from Chris Hardy a couple of days ago, and I'm just excited to see what he will do. He was an outstanding player at Jacksonville State, and his numbers, I think he put up 8.5 sacks last year, a lot of solo tackles, and that's just what we need, man. We need a dog on that line to continue to keep the pressure on opposing quarterbacks and offensive lines, and I think just more depth at every position, especially that D-line, is something that you really can't be questionable or really be concerned about because, again, the way we rotate with Pete and, never know with injuries and things of that nature as well, it can be really important. We saw injuries kind of plague us later in the season when we got to Georgia and we lost Michael Pettis, if I'm not mistaken, and then Jaden Williams got hurt in that Georgia game as well. So you never know what can happen. It's a long stretch of a season, and now that what our expectations are to play an abnormal amount of games that we've ever played before, we got to have depth, and that's what it's going to continue to help us move in the right direction. So I'm excited. I think everything is kind of checked off for the coaching staff, and I think fans should be excited because as well, a lot of these guys coming in, and obviously most of them, this will be their one and only year. I think it gives a good experience and just mentorship for a lot of our young freshmen that have come in this year, and then we'll be able to take the keys to the reign next year.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Chris Hardy. You mentioned him earlier. This is a guy that had a large number of tackles from his defensive end position. He had 16 TFLs, leading Conference USA, had 8.5 sacks and only 4 quarterback hurries, which means a lot of times if he got close, he got home. This is a really big pickup for this Ole Miss defensive line and this Ole Miss defense. But honestly, since the last time we talked to you, Ole Miss did get Rashad Amos and Dominique Thomas coming in at the running back position. This is a guy that had 210 carries, 1,075 yards, and 13 touchdowns at Miami of Ohio. He's originally from South Carolina. He was committed to Mississippi State, flipped to Colorado, and then flipped to Ole Miss as well. And the reason Ole Miss picked up Rashad Amos is because of all the weirdness happened with Corey Krosky-Merritt.
Yes.
And all of that went down. They needed somebody to protect themselves against the NCAA and all that going forward. This football team, I don't know of any weaknesses. When you think about this roster, where's the weak spot?
I don't know, because, and that's a great question. This is just not a recency bias either, but I think we've gained in every position. And I don't think a lot of teams can really say that, maybe a very select few. But not only did we gain in talent acquisition, I think we have one of the best coaching staffs in the country as well. And I think we gained a lot on both sides of the ball in that position as well. So I think that we have a testament to continue to going in the right direction, not just based on our players. We have guys that have been through the trenches to understand what the goal and mentality should be for this upcoming season, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. And as well, I think about our running back room. There were a lot of times last year we would play a game, and over the last few weeks, a little bit of downtime, I've been going back and watching some of the full games from last season. Commentators would come in and say Quinshon Judkins, the busiest running back in the conference last year, and the ability to get more guys in that running back room to help out Ulysses Bentley is important, because we don't want to, run the guy to the ground and he can't provide when we need him in their late game situations later on in the season. And so getting these guys avoids us from having to push a guy too far when we don't really need them to. And that only as well not only opens up, things in our offense. I think that sets up our defense better. As much as our offense could do, putting our defense in good situations on the field and putting them on better positions on the field helps out. And so right now we're looking really strong, and I'm really, really just excited to see how we can match up, because we've seen, some teams in the country, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, they're doing what we're doing. And I think that we understand what the motto is to compete and hopefully win a national championship is to recruit. And, although this transfer portal and NIL world it's a little funky right now, we're doing what we can, and we're doing almost better than anybody in the country right now.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, Daylan Flowers is going to be on the hot seat, and we are going to get his top 5 Ole Miss victories of all time. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's not just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but who might be open for the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're kind of looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that with small business wearing so many hats, they might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to help make the process easier. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Ole Miss is currently at -122 to make the college football playoff this year, if that is your flavor of choice. Maybe you do over-unders. Maybe that's your bet of choice, where Ole Miss is a 9.5 wins for the over-under. Or we can even get granular about it with Jackson Dart is -1,500 to win the Heisman Trophy. They really do have everything. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinion, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so it's Monday night, I should say, and Daylan Flowers is in the hot seat, and this is the subject today, the top 5 greatest victories of all time for Ole Miss. And the way this works is we count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Daylan's going to give us his list. All right, so Daylan, number 5.
Okay, and let me specify here. I've specifically focused on football. I don't know if I was supposed to or not, but that's where I'm aiming at.
That works.
Okay. So number 5, I'm actually going to start more recent, is this past year's win against LSU. And at that time, it was a big game for us. I mean, we coming off that my most frustrating loss from last year against Bama, and I really wanted to get Saban one time, and now he's gone, so we won't be able to do that. But beating LSU, man, it was a time that we needed to win. I know we didn't end up going to Atlanta, but we needed that win to keep us in position to have a chance to even get to Atlanta, and we were able to do that in an exciting game against the Heisman Trophy winner. And I was just really happy to be a part of it. You know, that's kind of just what you go to Ole Miss for, and you live college for moments like that, games like that, and it was fun, man. It was just a good beacon for where we were as a team and as a coaching staff. Because after that Bama loss, all I kept hearing is Lane's never won a big game at Ole Miss. Lane's never won a big game, and we came out there the next week and we won a huge game, and it kept us in position to end up winning 11 games last year. So it was a really, really big win and a fun one for us as well.
Number 4.
All right, I'm taking it back to a little bit my age. Well, not my age, but kind of where I was born in 2008, going down to Gainesville, Florida, and beating the Florida Gators, and coming out of Gainesville with a big win for us, and beating Tebow and company. It was fun, and I think that was a moment for Houston Nutt to kind of end that where we were at that time, a road skid for us, and finishing that season winning 6 games, and ended up going to the Cotton Bowl and beating Texas. So that was a fun year and a big win for us. It's a lot of times you don't go to Florida, and especially at Ole Miss, people weren't expecting us to win, and it was a battle-tested game, and a lot of people remember a lot of different things from that game. But we ended up locking that field goal late game, and it kept us in, and we ended up winning. And so that ended like a 15-14 game road losing streak for us, and we ended up winning the Cotton Bowl that year. So that was a really big game for us, in my opinion.
Wait, did you just say that you were born in 2008?
No, I meant that was like the years I was 2004, but that was kind of my years of where I was at. Yeah,
you were born after Eli Manning. Oh my!
See, we're having a come to Jesus moment live on the show this week, guys.
Oh my goodness! Number 3.
Okay, see, this is where I got tough, and okay, I'm gonna go 2015, going to Tuscaloosa and beating Alabama. And I didn't know honestly where I wanted to put this in, but I'm putting it in number 3. We don't go to Tuscaloosa and beat Bama hardly ever, and so to go down there in a funky game as well, but to go down there and get a win, and coming off a season where we just beat Bama the year before in Oxford, and that was obviously a momentous game for us. We went down to Tuscaloosa the next year and got a win, and I think that was a big game for Laquan Treadwell and his resume and his career at Ole Miss, and so it was just a legendary moment to have us go back-to-back Alabama wins.
All right, number 2.
Okay, so I'm going older, but it's still very relevant to me because I'm from Arkansas. So the 1962 Sugar Bowl, it was the only year we finished the season undefeated, and it was Johnny Vaught versus Frank Broyles, who is one of the greatest of all time. And of course, just being an Arkansas fan, I know a lot about Frank Broyles, and that game cemented our share of winning the national championship that year. And so that is a win that helped us cement the only undefeated season in Ole Miss football history, but as well, I think kind of cementing where we were in the 60s and how dominant Johnny Vaught was during his career at Ole Miss. And I truly don't think it can be replicated, but we have a really good chance to see what Lane Kiffin and the company can do this upcoming year.
And number 1.
It's 2014 against Bama. Some people may disagree with that, but I'm younger, so that's just kind of what I remember, and just the notorious, storm flood that we had from that game, and the field goal post coming down. It was a fun game, and I think something that I love. I'm a defensive guy, and that's not just football, but that's basketball, baseball. I love defense, and so to kind of seal out that game with the almost interception, but still coming up big on the defense side of that ball, and sending Blake Sims and company back home to Tuscaloosa with a loss. It was big for us, man. And I think that game as well cemented what we know is Bo Wallace's legacy at Ole Miss as a quarterback. I know he's in the water right now, but he had a obviously outstanding career at Ole Miss, and I think that was just a big win. Bama at that time were rolling, and I think in that Miss as well, they were coming off I think 2 out of the last 3 national championships or back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken. So winning that game against Blake Sims and company was really big for us, and it was fun because you don't get moments like that too often at Oxford.
So Lane Kiffin was involved in 3 of your games.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was.
It's interesting stuff. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Good grief, not 2004. Thank you for watching the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast app. Thank you so much for tuning in. I can't even think. My train of thought is completely gone. Thank you, Daylan Flowers, for stopping by. And we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Take care, y'all. Hotty toddy. Enjoy the summer, folks.